Here we are, back again. So today we're going to take the engine out. We got quite a bit of work there. Still got to figure out if we're overweight for the equipment we have. I don't think so. We've got a 2-ton hoist. I've got something to grab the transmission with here. So got the hoist over here. Got the it's a motorcycle stand, but it should do well with guiding our transmission down here. Of course, we got our trusty dusty quick jacks. We got a load spreader, so that'll help us with keeping a uniform load and not put any stress on other components. We just got to get the lift set up, got to get the car in the air. After that, all we've got are 12 bolts for the suspension, and then 12 bolts for the subframes. So the transmission and transfer case mount has 6 bolts, and the main subframe has 6 bolts. Get under there with the impact, get the hoist on, get under there with the impact, and then start to lower down the engine. So the idea here is we're going to try to lift the vehicle to lowest position, connect everything. So connect our hoist, get our lifts in, get our trans lift in position. Then put tension on the line, make sure we have tension that, as soon as that engine drops, it's not going to drop on anybody. We'll certainly have to be very careful about that. Then once we get to that point, everything's looking good, we'll start to lift the car. So when we lift the car, the engine should stay put, and we'll do that very slowly. And then that'll allow us to drop, we can drop the engine out with the hoist, get it onto a dolly, at a 1,000-pound dolly. Hopefully with that and motorcycle stand, we'll be able to move this engine around. So, all right, we'll get to it. Okay, so on today's episode, you can see I have a guest helper, Mike. His help here was invaluable. You really can't do this on your own. You can try, but it'd be quite dangerous. I really suggest having a helper. And Mike's help again was invaluable. So thanks to Mike. Here we are setting up the engine hoist. So I'm just cranking away here, getting the arm up into position. We'll get the legs on this thing, roll it up, install the load spreader, and make sure we have our engine load centered so it's not tipping one way or the other. And we'll start lowering down the engine. You can see here, and what you'll see as the episode progresses, is there's a lot of cranking, a lot of finagling, a lot of making sure that everything's on alignment, that we're not, pulling things off the chassis, breaking tubes, hoses, connections. There will be potentially a couple things you might miss. So just be very careful as you lower that engine, that you're watching all around. Make sure you have clearance. Make sure that all of your components are disconnected. You'll see here and later on in the episode, we had a couple of connections that were missed, that I had missed when I was taking the engine components off. There was a wiring harness on the driver's side and a tube bracket on the passenger side holding one of the oil cooler tubes in that had missed. So those were hindering the engine from dropping. So just be careful about all that stuff. I also had, a suggestion for everyone out there. If you're going to do this, and most people that do this, and I think actually all people that do this, leave the front suspension attached to the vehicle chassis. That is the best way to do it. We dropped the entire assembly down, and it made the engine just very hard to move around. And taking the axles off was very difficult with everything on the ground, and it was just a pain. So you can save yourself a lot of hassle by just leaving the suspension in the vehicle, just disconnecting it from the subframe and letting it dangle there on the car. And you can take your axles out from the vehicle with the engine in, do all that ahead of time. That at the back end would make everything much easier when moving the engine around and when putting it back in. So just a word to the wise there, just to make sure you get that, you leave that suspension in. And if you're going to pull those axles, don't forget to give yourself a nice little bucket underneath or something, because that trans fluid will pour out. So anyway, we're going to keep going on this, getting set up, getting everything into position, and then we'll start lowering the engine. So here we had a little bit of rain. It's just one of the fun things about working outside. You do have to deal with Mother Nature. So we're putting the tarp on here. Didn't really stop us. Got the tarp over the engine area so we didn't get a lot of drips. And just continued on. Okay, now we're moving on to the transmission mount. This will be right where the differential meets the transmission. There's a big black bracket, and there are 6 bolts that hold that bracket to the chassis and keep the transmission mounted to the chassis. So you get those 6 bolts off. After your 6 bolts are removed from the subframe, and your engine should be free floating. So once you get that last bolt off the transmission, just be careful. It may drop a little bit. Just be prepared for that. Make sure everything is held up and you got tension on your engine hoist, and all should be good. So we got that done. The rain started to let up a little bit here, so pull the tarp off, and then we keep on. And without further ado, we've reached engine removal. So with our 12 subframe bolts removed, we can now start to lower the engine. Just be very careful here as you're lowering. Make sure everything's clear, that you've got clearance, and that everything's disconnected. And we ran into an issue where I didn't disconnect a tube and a harness, so just be very careful here that everything's disconnected before you start dropping. Go it real quick.
This is on the floor.
So we had a couple of connectors here, just to remember. This looks like an auxiliary pump power connector, and then there was a connector here that was running to the auxiliary water pump, which is over there. So let's just not forget those. Anyway. Be careful. We've got this radiator hose support. You gotta get this screw off, and don't forget to put it back on. All right, that's okay. I mean, it was in a rubber clamp, so I don't think it broke anything. I think we're still okay. Okay. So here we're having a little bit of a clearance issue where the top of the suspension there, the shock, is not clearing the chassis. So this is where I mentioned before, where leaving the suspension in the chassis would have just been much more easy. So here we're having to lift the engine back up, pull the pallet out that we were going to rest the engine on, and rest it directly on the hoist, which actually works out very well in the end. But again, if I can make a recommendation, just leave your suspension in the chassis. So we'll get this pallet out, drop the engine back down, and start to pull away again.
to let the tension off this yet. But the tension's still there, so it hasn't dropped yet.
Right. So I'll take this latch out. This is funny.
Well, the only other thing is we let this drop and just take it over the hook and then...
Could do that.
You know, because it can still drop quite a bit more.
Yeah. Alright, let's So the general consensus there was that we wouldn't remove the hood latch cable, but that we would drop the engine down and then pull the chain over the cable and then reattach. So it's all these kind of funny things where, you know, we kind of trapped ourselves by, you know, having the chain connected to the engine and not realizing that that latch cable was in the way as we're pulling out. So yeah, we drop the engine down, pull the chain over the latch, and then we should just be able to back the engine out as it sits on the frame here. Look at this. Man, we're almost there. And then I'll get the trans jack under the trans. So it's
That's about it for this side.
good.
Yeah.
All right, we can swivel it. Woo! Goodness. Beast. Yeah. All right. All right, YouTube world. Here we go. She's out. She is a beast, as everybody says online.
Oh.
This is no different. So if you're going to embark on this adventure, just know what you're in for here. So I got this little clip here, found on the ground. Go ahead and secure that. And as we do that, that'll cap off this episode. So thanks everyone for joining. If you like what you see, like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.